Whoever made all of these Polish grammar rules needs to be punched in the face. Alright, so over the last few months, I've developed a lot of goodwill with the Polish audience, and now it's time to wreck all of that. So I studied Polish pretty rigorously for about a month. I made a bunch of videos about it on my channel, so I put a lot of effort into it. The more I learn about Polish grammar, the more confusing it gets. And what's worse is that it seems like Polish people don't even know their own language. For example, I'll ask them a question like, why is it jedna jabłko or dwa jajko or something like that? I don't know if that's correct. The response will be, well, it's kind of complicated. Polish is hard. And then they'll give their reasoning of why they think it is, but everybody has a completely different answer and nobody can really seem to explain it. This is a very big problem. So I've been thinking about why Polish is the way that it is, and it seems to me that it's like a spy language. The way that it's like shh, 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 makes it so that you can say it while whispering. Right? Almost like you're trying to tell secrets. And if you look at Polish history, I think that's a legitimate argument. Polish is such a terrible language to learn. Let me explain why. So we're gonna break down the same sentence in English, in Polish, in Spanish, and in Chinese, and break down the language systems, and I'll show you why Polish is so complicated. Yesterday, I went to the supermarket and bought 2 apples and 6 eggs. I went. Went is the past version of go, but it doesn't change based on who's doing it. I went, you went, they went, she went. 2 apples and 6 eggs. I like this system a lot because you have a version of like 1 apple, which is singular. Plural is 2 plus. Any number after 2, you have to add the S at the end, but it can go on forever. Whereas in Polish, from 1, it's 1 rule, and then from 2 to 6, it's another rule, and then 6 plus, it's a different rule. Doesn't make any sense to me. If you were to break out in Spanish, it's a little more difficult than English. Fui is I went, and this does change based on who's doing it. Yo fui, tú fuiste, ella fue, fuimos, fueron. So conjugations is one of the hardest parts about Spanish. Al supermercado. Al is a conjugation of a and el. This a means to, and then el it means like the, right? And that changes based on the gender. When it comes to plurals, they have a similar system to English here. Una manzana is 1 apple. Dos manzanas. To infinity, whatever, it's always gonna be manzanas. That never changes. Okay, so now let's look at Chinese. 昨天我去超市买了2个苹果和6个鸡蛋. So right here in the bottom, we have the traditional alphabet, the bapamafa, and this is actually how I originally learned Chinese. However, when I was around 12 or 13, they started changing it to the pinyin system, which is the Latin characters. Now, this is the only thing that they use. Nobody uses bapamafa anymore. Polish has the advantage that it already uses Latin letters instead of the Cyrillic alphabet like Russian, but that's gonna come with its own problems, which we'll talk about in a little bit. 我 is always me, no matter what, it never changes. 吃 means go. 买了 买 means to buy, but when you put le, that means past tense. 2个 this means 2. And then this is a measuring word that tells you that you're measuring something. This 苹果 means apple. Han means and. 6个 6, and then this is the measuring word. And then 鸡蛋, which means eggs. Grammatically, Chinese is very simple because it's like, I do this, you do that. And if you want to make it past tense, you just add la. The hardest part about Mandarin is that you're essentially learning 2 languages. How it's written versus how it's said have no relation to each other. So you can't derive what the thing is going to look like based on just reading the alphabet. Now let's look at Polish. Wczoraj poszedłem do supermarketu I kupiłem 2 jabłka I 6 jajek. Polish has 2 problems for English speakers. Number 1, the pronunciation is very difficult. When we see this W, we are used to seeing it as W, not a V. And then you have this L with the slash, which is a W sound, not an L sound. And then you have this SZ, which in English is like an SH sound. You have the CZ, which is like a ch sound. And then you have like different forms of S. So you have like a regular S, you have an SZ, and then you have S with the slash. And they all sound very similar with very slight degrees of differences, but it gets even more complex when it comes to grammar. I went, oh my God. Okay, so this word changes many times because it's me. I'm the main subject and it's past tense. So you have to, just to get this word, you have to go through 3 different rules. Do supermarketu, it's tu because I think it's the noun that you're doing it to. This also changes based on what part of the sentence it's at, which makes it even more confusing. So you have to go through 3 levels of conjugations for this. It's a I conjugation plus past tense. You have to also think about case, right? So that's all three of these things just for one word. This is one of my biggest frustrations about Polish. You have dwa jabłka. But if it's one, it's jedno jabłko, I believe. And then after 6, it changes again. So depending on what the number is, both the number and the noun change. And the same with jajek or eggs. So look how complex this basic sentence is if we were to break it down compared to the other languages. So as someone who's thinking about living here in Poland for long term, language is actually such a huge obstacle that it's making me reconsider how much effort I want to put into learning the language. I learned Spanish very quickly because it is similar to English, but Spanish as a language is actually quite simple and very easy to learn. Similar to Polish, in Spanish, the alphabet, no matter how it's written in a word, will always sound the same. The hardest part is like all the conjugations and like the gender nouns and stuff. Once you get over that initial hump in the beginning, Spanish becomes very easy to learn. Whereas Polish seems like the more layers you add on top of it, it just continually gets more unnecessarily complex. Now, on top of the fact that many people 30 and younger all speak English, it's becoming increasingly unnecessary for people to learn Polish. But this is the problem in the long term. Poland is on the map now, right? Over the last few years, Poland is growing substantially. I think this is an overall good thing. It's helping Poland become a richer country. And with growth comes a lot of international foreigners coming into the country. So let's be honest. Out of all the foreigners that you know living here in Poland, how many of them actually speak Polish? Most of the time, foreigners don't speak a lick of Polish. And I saw this in Colombia too, and I actually have a problem with this because if you immigrate to a new country, it's your job as the immigrant to learn their culture and their language. So I still stand by that point. However, if the language is so difficult to learn, people are not going to do it. And what you're going to have in 20 years is a country with a bunch of international people who don't speak that language. So learning a language is very difficult, no matter what language it is. It takes a lot of discipline, but the biggest thing is incentives. If I'm in a country where that language is easy to learn and I can't use English, I'm going to learn that language. As Poland continues to grow and develop, many people here speak English. It becomes increasingly unnecessary to learn Polish. People are not going to learn the language. That's just human nature, right? It's not going to happen. So I think there are a few things that can be done to help Poland and Polish in general. First off, I think there needs to be an overhaul in the Polish language. I'm not saying to remove people's home dialects. I think it would be a good move if the country decided to make one unified language, kind of how China did. And don't tell me this is not possible because China was able to do it twice. So the first step that they did was they changed the alphabet to pinyin, which were Latin characters, and they changed all of the characters to a more simplified version. So now the younger generation, they all only read the simplified version. If China was able to do it with 1.4 billion people, a way smaller country like Poland should be able to do it as well. So if I were a language expert, right, and if I were to make changes, the first thing that I would do is fix this number thing. If it's 1 egg or 2 eggs or 8 eggs, whatever, the noun should never change. Okay, I don't think that conjugation makes any sense or is necessary at all. So it would be like jeden jabłko, right? I know this is probably wrong, but for the sake of this argument, dwa jabłko, trzy jabłko. Or maybe like 2 plus, you can change jabłko to another word. Make it as simple as possible. This is a really good place to start. I think maybe the consonants and the way that they're written, so you have S like this, and then SZ. And then DZ is the freaking DZ like this, I think. And then you have RZ, C, CZ, CS. This is unnecessarily complex too. I think there should be a better way so you can get all of these sounds, but I don't have the answer for that yet. That's just a suggestion. Another thing that I think Poland can do, put a little more effort into entertainment and music, publishing that to a wider audience. I think Polish music is great, and you guys have seen me react to all the music on my channel. It has a lot of potential for international appeal. I think the Mecki Granny Orchestra concept is amazing, and there are so many amazing songs to come from that. But I think Polish media has a ways to go before it becomes internationally renowned. You can see how powerful having a strong media is. Good examples of this working are Korea and Latin America. As an Asian person, I'm very thankful of Korea because with the strength of their media, with the K-dramas and their music, they've been able to put Asian people on the map. K-pop has like fans all over the world, and so many people want to learn Korean now because of the media. You can also say the same about Japan with anime and video games. When it comes to Latin America, salsa music is internationally renowned. Reggaeton has literally infected music all over the world. If you look at the most popular Polish songs over the last few years, it's all reggaeton influenced. influenced. It just shows you the power of investing a lot into the entertainment industry. So why is all this important? Language is the main way for a country to preserve their culture and their history. But something that I've noticed, Polish people have this chip on their shoulder that any form of recognition from the outside world is like thrilling for them, right? Many people, including myself, are taking advantage of this insecurity of Polish people to make content, and it gets a ton of views. So I'm really reconsidering how much Polish I want to learn, because I know I'm gonna be here for the next 3 to 5 years. And it was very difficult seeing how slowly I made progress. I remember when I was in Colombia and speaking Spanish, I was able to speak basic phrases after about 2 weeks. And I remember after a month, I was able to say basic sentences and at least have conversations. When it comes to Polish, I can hear numbers and I'm surrounded by it quite frequently. But the more that I learn about Polish, the more confused that I get. And it's just so discouraging, and it's making me question, do I really want to put in the time and effort to achieve the B1 level, or just go to Spain where I already speak the language? All of a sudden that obstacle isn't there anymore. So one of the most exciting things about learning a language is being able to see consistent progress, and it's that progress that keeps you going. I'm putting all this effort but I'm not seeing any results. That's going to be very discouraging to a lot of people. The older that I get, the more valuable my time becomes. And as much as I love this country, I love making videos about Poland, I have to be honest about my future. Obviously, I don't mean to offend the Polish people. I just want the country to improve. This may be a very controversial video, but I think it's going to be interesting for a lot of people. I highly recommend that you guys watch this video next. Let me know your thoughts down below. Peace.